All right, so the Minnesota Vikings, they're 1-3 on the season. First quarter point, I guess now that's 17 games. It's not technically a quarter point, but this is normally when you can reflect and review why is your record the way it is now, what's been good, what's been bad. So I'm decided I'm going to make a pie chart of blame for the Minnesota Vikings 1-3 start to this season. Players, position groups, coaches, GMs. Who is responsible for the Vikings 1-3 start? Obviously, there were some positives and some negatives, and I don't believe this is an overreaction because 1-3, you are what your record says you are. And right now, the Vikings are 1-3. So pie chart to blame right now. Okay, so we're going to get the big chunk of the pie. This is about 4 or 5 pieces of the pie. It's Mike Zimmer. The head coach for the Vikings, Mike Zimmer. I've been making videos on here for about a year and a half now. This is my second season doing it, and I've been supporting Mike Zimmer no matter what. Last season, I supported him through this just because of the injuries and everything, COVID. I didn't want to just put it all in one season. But this season, with the way the Vikings started the year in Cincinnati with the penalties, and then with the defense not showing up in Arizona, and then still, in Cincinnati, the defense not being there either, and then the defense against Seattle not really getting it going right away. I just think a lot of the 3 losses has to go on the head coach because of the defense and sloppy play. If you look at the way we ended the Cleveland game, we got a penalty on an extra point, then they went for 2, so then they made it 8-7, and then it's 3rd and 22. Well, first off, then we go 3 and out, and then it's 3rd and 22, and you give up a halfback draw. I just have to put some of that on the coach. You have to. There's no reason not to. So I think 60% of the blame has to go on Mike Zimmer. I thought he got out-schemed versus Cliff Kingsbury. He got out-coached by Zach Taylor. Obviously, Seattle went well in the second half, but that was mainly because the offense just kept them off the field the entire time. And listen, I thought Cleveland, they did all right. They couldn't really stop the run, and which is one thing you really wanted to do, and we wanted to let Baker beat us completely, but just situational football against Cleveland really killed us. That's on the head coach. And the Vikings, as of right now, giving up 134 yards of rushing on the year per game. Last year, they gave up 135. And that was supposed to be our biggest improvement, was the D-line, was the linebacking, was the front 7. So, with that all said, I have to go 60% on Mike Zimmer. I know that is a lot for just majority of losses, but he's the head coach because he would also be getting the praise if we were 3-1. It's only right if we hold him accountable. So, like I said, holding people accountable, Mike Zimmer, 60%. I think that's fair. I want to get the quarterback out of the way because I think a lot of people will be shocked that he's even on here, but I'm going to give him 10% of this blame. Listen, Kirk Cousins, he was phenomenal for the first 3 games. He had 2 game-winning drives, and he's been playing great. It's just, I don't know if it's the way the roster's constructed, but this offense has so many weapons and just so many. It's insane. Besides Irv Smith being hurt, this offense is fully healthy. 3 great receivers, 2 great running backs, a great fullback, a decent offensive line. And I just feel like everything is hard. Even when we were moving the ball, actually, the first time it felt easy was last week against Seattle and with the first drive against Cleveland, and then they went numb when it came off to giving some resistance. But if we're looking at the first 3 weeks, the defenses we played really weren't that special. Arizona's defense is not that special. Seattle's defense is not that special. And I don't think Cincy's defense is not that special. So I think Kirk did what he should. I think that's what he should have done in the first 3 games. And then when we actually had a competent, dominant defense in our home building, that's the result you get. He's the quarterback of the team. He's the leader in the locker room. The penalties, those fall on 2 people. The head coach and the quarterback. I get they can't control if CJ Ham has a false start, but it's the way they carry their team. It's the way they are the leader. There are so many layers to what we see on the field behind the scenes. It's how Cousins is in the locker room, and I think he will be fine. Just for the first 4 weeks, he deserves 10% of the blame for the loss. Again, majority on Mike Zimmer, but it's not like Cousins has been perfect either. Hey, 0 touchdowns in the second half in the last 3 games. Some of that's got to go on the quarterback. And I think the other 10%, leaving 20% remaining, goes on Clint Kubiak. And this will be short and sweet. We have not been good offensively in the second half. I give you look at the numbers. We're probably top 10 in damn near every offensive category. But a lot of that comes in the first half, and you win football games in the second half. That's why our record's 1-3, I think. Listen, this offense has been great in the first half, but you finish teams in the second half. Seattle, that game, if they would have been able to move the ball on offense in that game would have been very dicey at the end. Because the Vikings offense, they were able to move the ball and control the time of possession, but they weren't able to finish. Even against Arizona, you shouldn't even have been in that position. You finish drives, you go get 7 in the second half, and you're not in that position to kick a field goal with 3 seconds left on the clock. And then Cleveland, we all know how that went. 0 points since the first drive. I just think Clint Kubiak, gets too generic on first and second down, too run heavy. I think he doesn't use the weapons on the outside as much as he should. So I got to give 10% to Clint Kubiak. And the other 20%, the trenches. I think the Vikings, what were we saying going in the year? I mean, at least me and the guy, us on my channel, we were saying the number one thing they need to improve is the trenches. Both sides of the ball. Doesn't matter where you go. Both sides of the ball got to improve. And yes, we have made additions. I'm not saying we haven't addressed it. But you can make additions, but what happens to the product? The product doesn't change. The ingredients into the Vikings defense have changed, but the product remains the same. It doesn't really make sense to me. And then with the offensive line, they were fine the first 3 weeks. Cincinnati, they were actually pretty shaky, but Arizona, Seattle, they were good. I'm fine with the way the offensive line played. Cleveland, they just got their ass kicked. I mean, they really did. And we made additions on the offensive line. Wyatt Davis, Christian Darrisaw, they just got to get out there now. Hey, Darrisaw can turn this around, turn the trenches around very easily. But especially defensive side of the ball, that was the one position group where I thought the Vikings could be dominant this year, where they could be top 5, top 6 in the league. And they're bottom, I wouldn't say they're bottom 5. They're probably in the 15th to 30th best defensive line in the league this year. And it's just they struggled. Tomlinson's came on as of the last 2 weeks, so I'm excited to see him. This is just a quarter review, so a lot can change. But as of right now, I got 60% on the head coach, Mike Zimmer, 10 on the quarterback, 10 on the offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, and then 20% has to go in the trenches. And I know they have other mistakes that they need to clean up. But, hey, shout out to the special teams really quick. Punt group, phenomenal. Vikings special teams have been the Vikings special teams have been phenomenal this year. So that's a huge plus side. Listen, we're 1-3. It's a quarter point. Who knows what can happen? But that's my pie chart of blame for the season so far.